Rugby is a game where one right or wrong decision can change anything. From Johnny Wilkinson's last-minute drop goal,
he drops for World Cup glory!
To Tana Umaga's spear tackle on Brian O'Driscoll. These are the moments that changed rugby forever. Let's get into it. 1973, Barbarians versus New Zealand. Gareth Edwards finishes a flowing move that's still called the greatest try ever scored. It wasn't just a score, it showed rugby could be poetry in motion, not just brute force.
Chased by Alistair Scowen. Brilliant! Oh, that's brilliant! John Williams, Brian Williams, pulling. John Dawes. Great dummy. David, Tom David, the halfway line. Brilliant by Quinnell. This is Gareth Edwards, a dramatic start. What a goal!
And just a few years later, rugby union itself stepped onto the world stage. 1987, the very first Rugby World Cup. New Zealand lifted the Webb Ellis Trophy, and suddenly the game had a global audience. But the biggest revolution came in 1995. Rugby union finally ditched its amateur roots and went professional. Overnight, players who once balanced rugby with day jobs became full-time athletes. Training, fitness, tactics, and money all transformed. This was the birth of modern rugby. And on the pitch that same year, one man proved what the new era could look like. Jonah Lomu. Just 20 years old, he tore England apart in the World Cup semi-final. 4 tries, running over defenders like they were traffic cones. Lomu wasn't just a player, he was rugby's first global superstar, and he changed the sport's image forever. 2 years later, the Lions added their own piece of history. 1997, South Africa. Jim Telfer's Everest speech before the first test was captured on camera.
It says, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better.
One of the most iconic team talks in sport. Words that defined what it meant to be a Lion. And then in 1999, another unforgettable World Cup moment. South Africa's Jannie de Beer kicked 5 drop goals in a single match against England. A record that stunned the world and forced defences to rethink strategy. By 2001, it was Brian O'Driscoll's turn to make magic. On the Lions tour to Australia, he sliced through the Wallabies' defence to score one of the most famous Lions tries ever. O'Driscoll through the gap still echoes today. But the defining moment of the early 2000s came in Sydney 2003, World Cup final, England versus Australia, scores level in extra time. Johnny Wilkinson, on his weaker right foot, slotted a drop goal that gave England their first, and only, World Cup. It was more than a kick. It proved Northern Hemisphere rugby could topple the South. 2 years later, the Lions were back in New Zealand, and controversy erupted. Just minutes into the first test, Captain Brian O'Driscoll was spear tackled by Tana Umaga and Kevin Milamu. His tour ended with a dislocated shoulder. Outrage followed worldwide. The incident sparked years of debate on foul play and duty of care, changing the way tackling was policed. By 2007, South Africa were on top again. Paris hosted the World Cup final, and Jake White's Springboks beat England to claim their second title, a statement of power. And in the same tournament, Argentina shocked France in the opening game, proving so-called Tier 2 nations could mix it with the elite. But rugby's image took a hit in 2009. Harlequins were caught faking a blood injury to sneak a substitution. Bloodgate became one of the sport's darkest scandals, leading to tighter rules on player welfare and integrity. That same year, Schalk-Burger was caught eye-gouging during the Lions tour. A yellow card at the time, but the backlash forced World Rugby to toughen up punishments for gouging. And if that wasn't brutal enough, 2010 saw Bakkies Botha cement his enforcer status with a headbutt on Jimmy Cowan in the Tri-Nations. 9 weeks banned, and his legend sealed. But the biggest story of that era came in 2011. After 24 years of heartbreak, New Zealand finally lifted the World Cup on home soil. France pushed them to the brink in the final, but Richie McCaw's All Blacks held on. Redemption, history, and the beginning of a decade of dominance. The club game was evolving too. By 2012, Leinster had crushed Ulster to win their 3rd European Cup in 4 years, establishing Irish provinces as true continental powerhouses. And in 2013, the Lions finally won a Test series again, hammering Australia 41-16 in the Sydney decider.
Officially now, and the Lions win a series for the first time in 16 years.
Ireland weren't far behind. In 2014, they beat both South Africa and Australia in the same autumn. Under Joe Schmidt, the Irish began their climb to the very top. And then came 2015. Brighton, rugby's greatest ever upset. Japan stunned South Africa in the Rugby World Cup pool stages. Kana Hesketh's last-minute try in the corner sealed the miracle of Brighton. It wasn't just a shock result. It changed rugby's map forever. Proof that so-called minnows could slay giants.
Patakawa. Murphy! Here we go!
England, meanwhile, endured humiliation at their own tournament. The hosts crashed out in the pool stage, the first to ever do so. But the very next year, rugby had its Olympic moment, 2016, Rio de Janeiro. Rugby returned to the games in the form of sevens. Fiji swept all before them to claim gold, the nation's first Olympic medal of any kind. For Fiji, it was more than sport. It was history, glory, and national pride. The Six Nations provided its own chaos in 2017. France versus Wales descended into scrums, scuffles, and nearly 100 minutes of play before the final whistle. And in the same year, across the Atlantic, Ireland beat New Zealand for the first time in history, in Chicago. Soldier Field erupted, a hoodoo broken. 2 years later, Dublin delivered even more history. Ireland beat the All Blacks on home soil for the very first time, confirming their place among rugby's elite. Meanwhile, Asia made its mark. Japan hosted the 2019 Rugby World Cup, the first time the tournament was held outside rugby's heartlands. It was a celebration of culture and sport, and it inspired millions across the continent. And the final in Yokohama delivered another defining moment. South Africa beat England, but the image that defined it came at the trophy lift.
Here comes Cheslin Colby. Colby bounces towards the fence. Beats one. Still going. Cheslin Colby. Cheslin Colby. South Africa. The World Cup is theirs.
Siya Kolisi, the Springboks' first black captain, raising the Webb Ellis Cup. It was more than victory. It was a symbol of unity, resilience, and the power of rugby to inspire. Then came the pandemic. 2020 brought empty stadiums, cancelled tours, and rugby fighting for survival. Even stranger, England's Joe Marler made headlines with an infamous grab on Alan Wynne-Jones, viral, bizarre, and unforgettable. By 2021, the Lions returned to South Africa, but this time behind closed doors. No fans, no atmosphere, just raw rugby. A tour like no other. And that same year, rugby itself changed forever. World Rugby cracked down on head contact. High tackles and reckless hits suddenly meant red cards. It was divisive, but it marked a seismic shift. Player welfare now at the very core of the laws.
Myler. PC.
Now Parlour. Oh!
Isn't that rather controversial moment actually? Oh my goodness me.
Innovation followed. In 2022, the 50-22 rule was introduced, forcing defences to adapt to tactical kicking like never before. That same year, France won a Grand Slam to reassert themselves as World Cup contenders. And Ireland stunned the rugby world again, winning a Test series in New Zealand, something no Northern team had ever done. By 2023, South Africa cemented themselves as rugby's kings. In France, they edged New Zealand in the World Cup final to claim back-to-back titles and their fourth overall. The Springboks, undisputed giants of the sport, but that tournament had more stories to tell. Portugal, a nation of amateurs, shocked Fiji with a draw. Ireland and New Zealand produced a quarter-final for the ages, one of the greatest matches rugby has ever seen. And off the field, rugby showed its heart. In 2024, Union and League came together for the 745 game, raising funds for motor neurone disease. The codes united for a cause far bigger than sport. That same year, Sevens took centre stage again at the Paris Olympics. Fiji defended their title, winning back-to-back gold medals. For a small island nation, it was nothing short of miraculous. Proof that rugby sevens belong to the world. From Gareth Edwards' try, to Jonah Lomu's unstoppable runs, to Japan's miracle in Brighton, to Kolisi lifting the cup, these were the moments that changed rugby forever. Which one meant the most to you? Did we miss a defining moment in rugby history? Let us know in the comments. And for more chaos, drama, and legendary throwbacks, subscribe to Rugby Throwback, because this is just the beginning.